So you mentioned Hacker News before,
Oh yeah.
and I'm curious about it because I mean I use Reddit, and essentially it seems to be the same kind of formatting as Reddit, but they haven't switched over. Um, what about it? Why is it its own kind of social media platform?
I don't know. I mean, I think Hacker News existed before Reddit,
Hmm.
so it's a bit older, but um, yeah, it's just a bit different. It's got a different flavor. And like speaking of different communities, I think different communities have their own culture. And Hacker News is, I mean, it's moderated by people at Y Combinator and it's run by Y Combinator.
Oh, really?
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So it's sort of the go-to place originally, at least, for a lot of the community around the Silicon Valley startup scene.
Hmm.
That's kind of its heart. Uh, but it's yeah, it's its own thing. And like I find there's something that people underestimate, like massively underestimate, which is the effect of culture in spaces like that. Like on Reddit, there's kind of the culture is like, oh well, anyone can say anything, obviously, and then you've got to be like a bit, it's got to be pretty on the nose for a comment to get deleted. That's a big step by the moderation team. Um, Hacker News has much more of a expectation. It's not just it's not politeness. It's like a good comment on Reddit might be a one line quippy funny comment
Hmm.
that would get downvoted to oblivion on Hacker News.
Hmm.
And things that are downvoted get grayed out, so people you can't really read it unless you select it. Um, that's Hacker News' culture. Hacker News' culture is like a good comment on Hacker News is maybe a couple paragraphs, but you're going to make a point. You're going to have an opinion. And often, I mean, like Hacker News also has its own childish flavor. Its childish flavor is you've got to be a bit, you think that you know what you're talking about. Actually, the truth is this thing. That's the quintessential. Me and one of my friends sometimes talk about like the right kind of bait for Hacker News in the comment section. You've got to you got to say, oh well, I read your article, and that's I can see why you think that, but actually, if you knew
Good
as much as I did,
try.
so yeah.
Well, that's funny because on Stack Overflow, it seems like a lot of the comments that I've seen are kind of brutal. Like I don't
Mm,
know if it's the autism and just the lack of like self awareness, but sometimes you just see comments that just destroy someone.
yeah, yeah. Well, Stack Overflow, Joel Sporsky, the original design team of Stack Overflow, there's this fantastic talk, if you're curious, where they talked about the philosophy behind Stack Overflow. And when they made it, at the time there was Yahoo Answers and there was a couple other things, and they were like, no, 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 no. Who is Stack Overflow for? So I'm going to
Mm.
ask you this: Who is the Stack Overflow question and answer for?
I mean, engineers or people learning about engineering.
Yeah, but what like? Do you think it's for the people writing the question, or for the people answering it, or
Probably for people reading the question.
exactly? Yeah. So everything about Stack Overflow is optimized for the person googling the question,
Mhm.
wanting to have a good experience, where they see someone asking a question, they can figure out the problem they have, and then seeing the top answer that's been accepted, and
Mm.
reading that and being enlightened. So everything about the site is about that. So questions, if there's two questions about the same thing, then one of them is going to get deleted. If there's multiple answers, but they're devolving into a conversation, the whole thread's going to get deleted. It's going to be deleted by the moderators. It's considered
Mhm.
bad form. Answering questions, they gamify that, so you can get points by answering questions. And if your questions get upvoted and accepted, then you get special points. And as you get more points, you get more permission to be able to moderate Stack Overflow. And then the people asking the question, maybe they get an answer out of it, but if you ever try and ask a question on Stack Overflow, there's so many fields saying like, hey, you start typing it and they've got an AI that says,
Yeah,
hey, are you sure your question's not the same as any of these eight
yeah,
other questions
yeah.
that sound the same as yours? And things like that. So yeah,
It has a template. Like, what have you tried already? Like all
right.
these different things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Stack Overflow is as a site, and that's how it ends up how it is. But it's yeah, I don't know. I just think a lot about that question of culture. I mean, it comes back. There's this thread through a lot of the things that we've been talking about of how are the people that are showing up seeing the space? Like, what's the stories that they're telling themselves? And if you use Google Docs or talk to Google engineers, who, by the way, I worked at Google for a little while. I love the people that I worked with at Google are fantastic human beings. I adore them. Some of the most thoughtful and insightful and caring people that I've ever been able to work with. But the way that they're seeing the world is of this idea of like, well, we're the people that understand technology and we understand it really well. So we're
Mhm.
going to build something that we're going to hope people want to use and that's going to be useful
Mhm.
because we deeply understand the technology. And of course, you can trust us. I mean, have you met Fred? Fred's a great guy, you know? Like, what's the problem, right? And the median age at Google, I'm not sure what it is now, but when I was there, I think I was about 28 or 26 when I was there. And I was older than the median age at Google. So
Okay. Yep.
like, this is a bunch of, and again, it's probably aged, over time, but in my head, I imagine a bunch of 25-year-old, mostly men who are, mostly like the kinds of people that end up as programmers, making decisions based on the way that they're seeing the world. And how do they
Mhm.
see the world? Well, every answer is found in code because that's what we're good at. And how do we do governance? I don't know. Let's build an artificial intelligence to do it. It's fine.
Mhm.
And how are the people on Reddit seeing things? Oh, well, we're this kind of, I don't know, it's kind of wasting time. It's kind of trying to be funny, and there's a sort of game about it. And I guess we want some loose moderation, and then people have opinions about things and react to them strongly. And then how are people in Hacker News thinking about it? It's, I want to be seen as someone who's clever. That's that feeling. I want to be seen as someone who's clever, that gets upvoted because I have clever ideas and I'm, whatever.
Mhm.
So comments often end up, or conversations and disagreements are often about who's the cleverest rather than trying to find some answer.
There's this culture, there's this cultural idea that isn't very kind, and maybe there is a kinder way to think about it, or a better way to think about it. But people like you, and even Hacker News in itself is kind of the intelligentsia, as you would say, of
Mhm.
society. And unfortunately, or fortunately, or, or just realistically, these are the people who are controlling society in many ways. Not like a reptilian agenda, sort of everyone they're controlling us, but more of a the smartest people are the ones who dictate the culture. And it's not just Google; it's also like Kanye West, and
Mm.
he's brilliant in his own way. And so when you are talking on Reddit, I'm sure Reddit has a higher average IQ because it's mostly a lot of reading and writing and stuff, but like you're kind of talking to pretty normal people. But when you're on Hacker News, the culture is intelligentsia culture. Like if you are on Hacker News, quite, you're probably at least one standard deviation above the general intelligence. And so the culture is different. And then when you make content, Seph, like although you don't post very much, which I want to I wanted to grill you about because I saw like one post a year, and it's like you're getting to the top page of Hacker News, but you're not really talking to the general public. And okay, I guess this is more related to something that I've been dealing with, which is YouTube comments. Like there are hateful comments, and I'm trying to figure out a way to categorize them in my mind. And I've realized like Lex Friedman made this comment the other day on Joe Rogan about, and it was like clipped and put on Reddit. And he made this comment about how we should be listening to flat earthers because they're telling us that there is essentially a fundamental mistrust of science in the community,
Right.
in the wider community. And every single comment in that thread was like, but flat earthers are jerks, and there's like, like
Yeah.
and it was like, but I guess actually Lex isn't really talking to Reddit. He's actually talking to more Hacker News, or he's talking to the intelligentsia. He's talking to the scientific community and telling them what they need to hear.